Robin, in trying to really know what reality is all about. The nature of time seems to sit at the core. We don't understand time, we don't understand anything. I've talked to quantum physicists about time with some very interesting views. How do we deal with understanding time from a human perspective, the perception of time, and also as a philosopher, particularly using metaphysical analysis to analyze time?
Time is a particularly fascinating topic. It's fascinating to me as a philosopher. I think it's fascinating for everyone because we are temporal beings. We live in time. Time conditions our whole existence. We feel we're moving through time. The past is gone. It may be an object of considerable regret. We're anxious about the future. It would be nice to be able to understand a little bit more about this medium in which we live, and to what extent our ordinary experience of time corresponds to time's true nature. Both scientists and philosophers have done a fair bit of damage, I would say, to our ordinary conception of time.
And that may be true, though. It may be that we have an illusion of time that time is not fundamental, it doesn't flow, and it's just that the human process of dealing with the world has given us this false feeling.
I am inclined to think that part of our experience of time is illusory. I think maybe that's putting it a little bit strongly, but it leads us to a certain conception.
How so? How do you get there?
Okay, so we ordinarily think of time as flowing, that the past events, that they're gone, they are either they're receding into an ever more distant past, or they go out of existence altogether. Now, the view of time that we've got from physics, particularly relativistic physics, is a view of time that makes it much more akin to space. Indeed, it's a sort of a fourth dimension of space-time. And in this conception, all times, past, present, and future, are just as real. So the past and the future are just as real as the moment in which we're having this conversation. Moreover, we're not actually moving through it. There is no time which is uniquely present. This time is only present in the sense that this place is here. It just happens, the place we happen to be at.
And that's true for the future as well as the past.
It is. What we call the future, that is, times that are later than the time at which we're having this conversation, are just as bit as real as this current time.
Does that make everything deterministic? Because if that's true at this point in space-time, that there is an event in space-time in what we would call the future that's set. So does that give me absolutely no flexibility in how I'm going to do, what I'm going to do to get there?
Yeah, I think I would like to distinguish between a deterministic view, where everything that we do has antecedents necessitating causes. You know, I'm forced to behave as I am at the moment because of what's going on in my brain. I want to distinguish that thesis, which arguably...
That's different. Yeah.
Arguably is impossible to reconcile with freedom, and the idea that the future is determinate. In other words, there's a fact of the matter as to what will happen. Now, if all times are equally real, there's a fact of the matter as to what you and I will do tomorrow. Right. We cannot change that. That doesn't mean that what will happen tomorrow isn't brought about by what we decide to do today.
So how do you reconcile those two, what seemingly are dramatic contradictions, in that it exists on a timeless basis what you and I will do tomorrow, mm-hmm. but yet it's going to be brought about what you and I decide now?
Yes, I believe
with giving us total freedom to decide whatever we want now. You have to add that step, because I can fool myself into thinking that I have the real choice, but if it's set already, then I don't.
I think freedom is a matter of a causal connection between our desires, our intentions, and what transpires. Some people would say freedom is more than that. It's the freedom to do otherwise. Now, if we say there's a fact of the matter as to what is going to happen tomorrow, we can't say, well, I'm still free to do otherwise. One could still say, I could have done otherwise, if circumstances had been slightly different, if I had decided differently, then the future would have turned out differently. But there's one way in which the future will turn out.
So what other implications are there of this radically different approach of time? You said time doesn't flow. What does it do then? How do sequences of events occur?
Well, even if time doesn't flow, there can still be an order. So one time it is still objectively earlier than another. To say that time doesn't flow doesn't collapse time into a single moment.
So what's the distinction then? What is the distinction between time flowing and sequences of events that have an order?
Well, think of a spatial order. If you line up a number of objects left to right, you've got an ordering there. This object here is between those two objects, but you've got nothing akin to passage there. Nothing is moving. The difference between a temporal ordering and a purely spatial ordering is that in a temporal ordering you've got direction. Now, this is why people will think that for a time order, you must have passage, because passage is what confers a direction on that ordering. What I would say is you need an asymmetry of some kind, where it makes a difference where you are in the order. And what I would say is that the asymmetry is introduced by causation. What we call earlier events are the causes of what we call later events. That introduces an asymmetry that you don't have in a purely spatial ordering.
So how important to our understanding of reality is this sense of what time may be? Because what you've described is radically different in terms of the deep meaning and being of time, the ontology, so to speak. It may not feel any different to us knowing what you say. It feels the same, but the fundamental difference is very strong. So what are the implications of that, if any?
I think there are implications of this radically unorthodox view of time on how we do feel, for example, about the nature of death. So insofar as we think we're passing through time, we're hurtling through the temporal dimension, and we're sort of staring into the abyss, as it were. We're facing our own annihilation, and reality is just going to leave us behind. We will be unreal. We'll be completely obliterated. If you replace that idea of passing through time with the idea of our being, as it were, frozen in this unchanging block, there's nothing so significant about death. That just happens to be one of the temporal limits of our lives.
Frozen in that block versus death, to me, doesn't sound like that much of a difference.
If we think not of our own deaths, but the deaths of our loved ones, one of the hardest things to come to terms with is the idea that they're gone forever. Reality has left them behind, we've left them behind. I take comfort from a view of past times as being just as real as this one. In a sense, these loved ones of ours, they still exist. They're just as real as we are. They're just in a different part of reality from us. That doesn't mean to say that we can contact them. I don't believe that would be possible, because that would be reversing causation itself. But they haven't gone out of existence, and for me, that's actually a comforting thought. So in our ordinary experience, time is something that passes. What scientists and some, although not all philosophers, say is that it does not, that it's much more akin to space. And I believe that the change in our attitudes towards our own existence, when we take that idea of time on board, is something akin to a religious experience, as if reality has revealed itself in a way that helps us to appreciate the significance of our lives.